they're building 2 up here.
Yeah, just put that right up there again. With the clip on the back. There we go. Perfect. Beautiful. Okay. We have talked about the battle. We have talked about how absolutely everything that this 900 to 11 man army, more, what are the words they use? More better outfitted and equipped than any expedition that had set foot yet in the New World. It was like being with a traveling city. All of that stuff was inside the 80 houses that DeSoto decided to set fire to, burning everything they had with them. Priests, everything you need for communion, blacksmiths, keep the 350 horses shoed. We had hundreds of pigs, we had cooks, we had cutlery, we had metal, we had armor. None of it was on them, right? The slaves carried everything to stress inside. So what do you expect to find when an entire town is burned and all of this Spanish metal has been on the inside, has seen that heat, has melted, has been there, tossed around and underground for hundreds of years until development pushes it all into a creek? What would you expect to find? Let's take a look. Here we have laid out, Nick, since you're mobile, let's first give them an idea of what we're talking about in quantity, I think.
Yeah.
So they say when you're looking for Mabila, what do the experts say? How will you know? Well, you will have more metal than you know what to do with. The official academics who are hunting for Mabila 60 miles that way have found a quarter of a horseshoe. Now, what I've found, I've laid out a few pieces here on this table so you get an idea of the different types. And we'll review the table. But Nick, if you want to give everybody an idea, I have examples, but these buckets are full of metal. I have one more here. I have the last bucket, which was brought up a couple of weeks ago. I left here so you could see the randomness, the different types of metal, how these sheets have the quartz rock stuck in them from where they were lying on the ground when they burned. Here with the clay, this big hunk with the various quartz pieces stuck inside, and all the other features I'll show you on the table. But this is a random bucket. Last one gathered. Again, quantity, we go here, same thing.
A little bit more than a horseshoe, right?
A little bit more than a horseshoe, bro. And this is what one man with these buckets has brought up over the past few years, right? Here, we're not done yet.
Oh, yeah.
Here, full to the brim, all of these buckets, and this cooler with your equipment is chock full. The reason they're separated is this saw a house fire, and so there's likely carbon contamination, so I've kept it separate. This was some of my first gathered stuff over here. Big ones here. All right, so that lays out for you an idea of the quantity. Now, Nick, I'm going to take you down there here shortly. Bring your own bucket, brother, because you will come back with this much inside of 20 minutes. Let's look at the metal. The main thing to try to point out as we go through this is just the multiplicity of types of metal that you see exhibited, right? There is not just iron. There is not just one type. Only way I really know to start is to dig in. So first things I put my hands on, usually I like to display the hollow nature of a lot of this, right? This is a striking piece. You can see these bubbles represented here. I like these pieces. I've got several to show you because whatever this was propped on was not metal, as exhibited by the fact that I can stick my finger in there and pull out the carbon from the fire. Okay, now you'll see this carbon present on many of these pieces. This odd looking thing, which had something in here, right? You see the carbon starting here. You flip it around, that was the case. This was obviously on a stick, a pole, something which carbonized when it all burned. So the carbon feature exhibits on a lot of these pieces. What I've tried to do is just group them roughly so you can get an idea for the different types. Nick, you like this piece because it exhibits, again, imagine a hunk of armor or a horse armor, or who knows. You can see these holes obviously there and designated on the back where it burned. Right here close, man, we have, I call this first piece. That's how I've referred to it before, because I was, after gathering all of this, you know, you start picking up these pieces, and I wasn't looking for Mabila, right? I'm down there on this creek connecting with God, trying to, you know, sort my own sort of stuff out. But I start finding all this metal. And so then I learn about a story about Mabila. Now, I was holding this piece in my hand. I was in like the outside of the UPS waiting for someone over here in town in a parking lot. And I always used to keep rocks in the back of my truck, you know, as I'm sorting through this process. So I'd study them while I waited. And I took this piece, and as I had it in my hand, I could see the different layers of metal around this hole where it had kind of melted away, right? And then I could see here on the back little pieces of quartz or clay stuck in it. And then I had right here in my hand, you can even see the layers of the metal here, where I could see that this was something formerly in a form that then got melted. I cried sitting in that parking lot looking at this piece because I suddenly knew what all of this metal was I was finding. Pieces like these. This was something. I mean, imagine, who knows, right? All the equipment. But what really strikes you is the carbon in here, the different types of metal. I have bubbling, I have different bits of rusting versus looking there, right? Versus all this yellow sort of rusting. This is a different material, right? Now I can find examples of this in all sizes. You can see the melting. You can see little shiny stuff in there, Nick, the little silver, right? All of these have been washed. Whatever's on there is not coming off. Washed delicately. You see a different type of metal inside this outer one, right?
For sure.
Okay, brackets, you know, that's what I see there with these holes. This is a good one that gives you the hole and also the carbon. Right, so the carbon's there. The back where it was getting hot. This one you can see what would have been, this was fastened onto two things, right? And perhaps it melted this way because you can see where gravity sort of helped the flow of metal. Like imagine seeing lava, you can see the metal unfolding. Strikingly different types of metal, you know? I mean, look, this is almost still shiny. Continuing with, you know, you've got little pieces like this, Nick, that you can see an impression in there, right? Of something. It's like a little medallion, maybe, fizzing from the fire. This is really interesting because I can see the layers. I can see the different colors, and I can see this outer layer of whatever alloy this was is chipping away. Right next to what appears to be, to my eye, a crossbow bolt, you know, perhaps slightly melted. So we can see a point here, right? We can see this metal looks like it's been peeled back, so that probably would have continued to wrap around whatever was stuck in there, i.e. a shaft, like a bolt from a crossbow. Weapons that, of course, they would have had. button. I don't know. Now this, you start really seeing this yellow rust on this metal. Is it gold? Is it copper? I don't know, but I know it's really different type metal. I know it has these shiny aspects to it, and I can see right here melt patterns, right, where something was there before this thing was losing its shape and running out. Same thing, I get a little yellow coloration, a little of the shiny stuff, but this was hollow, obviously, at some point. And the last big sort of example of that different type metal, and just the way you can see it melting and running. A lot of these pieces, big and small, all right, I can see, I don't know, metal smithing, metal working, right? I can see the layers of the different metal in its shape. I've got pieces, again, exhibiting having been wrapped around something like that before all of it oozed and melted away. Got a nice impression here and red up here. So again, whatever this metal was, bubbles and fizzes on the inside. All of this lighter alloy comes out, melts on this, and then the harder stuff is here on top. Nick, this one really looks like a bracket, you know, like I might sling down to keep my chest safe, you know.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
Yeah.
All of these little, obviously, chunks of something that have fizzed out of both ends. There's tons of these. So that was all the same thing. The other type of metal, look at this one with all the bumps on it. I really tried to group it over here. Right, where whatever this stuff is different than the rest, and it gets really fizzy when it gets bubbly. You can see like here, it's like the point of something, right? But really what I wanted to showcase was how all of these different type pieces were reacting differently to the heat. So you can see indeed different types of metal. Picking up little rocks from the environment. This was, I just put a video up. This was a whole key. This was round. I have a video of where I found this with my dog, and this is broken in all the mini transits. Fluted. What else do we have as we move across? Again, man, just tons of these pieces. Looks like a freaking axe head, right? This piece, I can see the representation. There's a little eye. Is that? Now, when I flip it over, same in reverse, right? Something decorative. Same thing of different type metals stuck here on the outside, melted. Now what I have over here to my left, what I call two cultures, one piece, right? I've showed these off. So the reason I call them that is, look at this piece. So obviously we can see a shape here that would have continued. Who knows what this piece of equipment was, but it's melted away. It's lost its shape, right? It was sitting on something. Just like what Vanessa's swinging on here behind me. What do you think their streets might have been like, right? Yeah. So all of this is sitting on these rocks, melts, loses its shape, and retains. You can see where some of them broke off. Look, you can see where the metal melted around it, and it broke off. There's a triangle. It melted on what it laid upon. This is an excellent example. I've got a triangle. And I've got what is either clay, or I've found that they also do petrified wood pieces, but obviously stuck here in whatever this was. And now these two cultures, one piece, go on and on. If you can see the hollow there, I don't know if that shows, Nick, through there. Yep. But this is like looks like a buckle, sort of buckled over itself. And as it melted away, it stuck to what it was lying on. You can see the little red in the quartz, high heat, right? These pieces get kind of dramatic and really cool for like display pieces. Like, I like this one, the quartz sticks. Yeah, so you can see a piece of worked quartz stone here, and then this very decorative rock here, trapped in the metal. It looks pretty badass from that route. Worked. This looks like moonstone, so that's quartz, and you can see the different striations in there. you can see where this, Nick and I were looking at all these that are in process, right? This thing was being processed, or had been processed, as you can see from this bowl that it makes, right? And perhaps stood up like that. Well, again, caught up in all this metal, just freshly arrived from Spain, stuck on it. And you see that pattern repeated. Another worked stone, clay piece in there, stuck to this metal. You can see where something that was stuck here is broken off. And it just continues this pattern of two cultures, one piece, even down to the small, man. So you've got all these obvious clay pieces. Some people call them game pieces, right? But they're clay, they're fired clay. You can find these unfired, where I'm going to take you today. You find all these pieces. You also find these pieces with metal splattered on them. Now, there is nowhere else. Here's an excellent one. I've actually got a piece just like this on another table, trapped in metal. There's nowhere else you would have native fashion clay pieces with metal melted on them, unless you had found the spot of the Battle of Mabila. So that's why I dig those pieces, because it is, again, two cultures, one piece. Various quartz pieces. Here we have, so when you have mortal and pestle stones, right? This stone has not been washed or processed in order to show the oils, you know, here on the quartz and the stone, and then here from where it was working, right? All sorts of decorative rocks. It's like, when I take you down there, man, all of these decorative rocks, it's all there is, right? You get these things wet and they shine. Shaped stone. This one's really cool because the way it's quartz, right? Rock, the way it balances up like that. Another little piece of quartz with the metal stuck to it. Again, obviously shaped. That's shaped. Raw quartz is here. Right? This is what raw quartz looks like. Big chunks of it. It's a really cool chunk. Okay. They work it into these smaller pieces here in Mabila, and when they burned the town, they brought everything into their houses, and everything that was there gets metal on it as the whole town burns. This clay piece, so this has seen a subsequent house fire, so it's blackened, but I have video of it before that. This is clay. You can look on here, man, and you can see where palm prints, right, might have formed this thing. It's all in here upon examining, right? This is clay, kind of looks like a tongue. You can see here where it was formed. Also kind of looks like a sarcophagus. All right, so at the Mabila complex, there is a mound, which I just showed Nick the LiDAR of, which demonstrates that this is a representation of that mound. That mound is a burial mound that was made after Mabila when the X marker tree was put up. And this piece, because the creek has been diverted thanks to construction, it is washing away the back of this mound and pieces are coming out, such as this, which I think we all agree definitively memorializes that mound. Therefore, we can extrapolate happened after the battle and is a burial mound. Who would they go to such trouble to memorialize with these mounds and these marker trees? The son of Tuscaloosa, who died in battle that day. Real quick, I guess. So this type stone, you find large and small all down there, right? You see the way it's really flat and finished. So it sits like this. When you do that, you can see they hollowed out that type of rock there to make what looks like a mouth. You've got a nose, and then look in here and you can see intentionally etched eyelashes where they made an eye. Now, was this a representation of the giant Chief Tuscaloosa? I don't know. Was it a snakehead? Who knows? Everybody sees something different. But what we can tell from this piece is that it was most likely on one of the shelves in one of those longhouses. Because when you notice, there's no, look at the color. All right, let me put it on its face down where it would have fallen if it were sitting on that flat side on a shelf or a table, face. Now I've got red discoloration from high heat, and I've got a few little specks of metal trapped in here. So again, this thing fell face down, saw high heat. Might be a representation of Tuscaloosa. Either way, it was a valued piece in somebody's house before DeSoto burned this town. This is a worked piece of quartz. That's why I grabbed it. I saw that and I was like, oh, they were messing around with that. You flip it over and you've got this type of metal splattered on the back of it.
I said, well, at least we got something good.
Two cultures, one piece.
Well, that's true. So,
Yeah, well, the reason I didn't have to put it real far
Nail? Oh, we didn't see the nail. See a nail head? See that? And then all the bubbling and fizzling that stuck to it. Large chunks. This is a cool one. Oh, so in process, right? So we see all of these quartz sticks that just come up in this whole bucket behind me, dude. Right, it's quartz sticks. They had to get them to this point, and so this could be however they were cutting these things. Look, that's a 90-degree angle, right? And that crease runs the whole way. So they were gonna pop that loose. So because all of this happened in a disaster, there's an effigy piece. It sits flat like that. Logan's the one that first saw it. He sat it on the table like that and looked at him and he said, dude, why do they have a piece of a manatee? Kind of looks like a manatee. It does, doesn't it? Okay, now these pieces, the reason I said them here, they're different pieces. They're sandstone and quartz. I don't know what this was about, these little nub pieces, but they're everywhere, right? This meant something to them. They're just everywhere. This one almost looks like it was sketched with a pencil. I don't know. It's just really cool.
Seems like a repetitive thing.
Exactly. So it represented some sort, it was a totem to them. We've all got our crucifixes and our Mother Marys, and you know what I mean? It's a totemic piece. That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
You know, on and on. Something like that, right? Shaped stone. Red from the high heat. So I think that's a pretty good overview of the table. I mean, without picking up... Oh, we missed the pottery with the script.
Let's get that one in. Before we wrap it up, this will be...
Okay, so this is a pottery shard that was found together by me. I've broken it. There's your inside of it. Now, this here appears to be a script.
but you have got my text.
Let me wet it for you, Nick. I got a hose right here.
I got a call 2024, and I talked to Queen, and he said he's still alive. She finally called me. Sheriff told me that she had moved before his wife died.
All right, now you can really see it.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So, native script of some sort, I would assume, based on where I found it. With all of this. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In person, you could definitely tell there was something scratched in there, without a doubt.
Yeah. In process. Making something, and something that, oddly enough, if we had a flat surface, I can showcase. Yeah. Stands up off balance. Yeah. And then all these decorative pieces, they're better when you get them wet.
Oh, yeah, the colors really pop out.
Yeah, but you can see why I picked up a lot of these. This one you can almost even see like a face represented in. It's really cool. You know, you got to think, man, these people for how many thousands of years existed with rock and clay technology. You know, I heard a guy say like this: if suddenly civilization were gone, right? Every man were just gone except you, right? How long would it take you before you found evidence of civilization? So let's just say bombs went off. Oh, everything's blown up. How far would you have to walk before you found a piece of a cell phone? How far would you have to go before there was a McDonald's wrapper, right? How far would you have to walk? And the answer is not far at all before you would realize you're on pieces of a civilization, right? These people had rock and clay technology for thousands of years. Thousands. We've been playing with our plastics and shit for hundreds. Okay? Thousands of years working with rock and clay. And when you go down there to this site and you realize you can just grab a handful and it's this, you realize you are walking on the debris of a civilization. One that this civilization from the West brought its metal, brought its men, brought its rape, and brought its terrible, forceful ways to bear upon this civilization, which had endured for thousands of years, in touch with itself, in touch with spirit, in touch with God, in touch with nature. That's why I like Two Cultures, One Piece, because you see that clash as you see it here on this table, well represented. I was telling Nick, when I go down there and I'm collecting this metal, you see the ratio. I leave a lot of the native. I collect this metal because I feel like I'm picking up litter. You know, I'm taking the remains of this wrong, invasive Western civilization and I'm removing it, leaving it for the civilization that was here for thousands of years before this egotistical bunch of psychopaths came bumbling in, barely understanding what they were seeing. As we said, read these chronicles, they marvel over every aspect of these people. Not only in writing do they marvel over the way these people presented themselves, they wonder where it came from. Because they're here in the wild in a new land and they have people wearing feathers and decorated proudly and giant and conducting themselves in a way, in their words, would put courtsmen and diplomats back in Europe to shame. They barely grasped what they were stumbling into. And now, what I hope is what we gain from all this is not all of this. To me, this is obvious. It is what it is. It's trash. It's remnants of that invasion. But what we have yet to explore is what was here, what these people were doing, what they were connected with. We see it in their pieces. We see it in the landscape, in the earthworks, and we see it in the plan that Tuscaloosa put in place here that day to repel these bastards. And that is our artifact table.
On the bed.